All right, you found First and Pod, second Sunday of the NFL season, now in the books. Thanks for listening wherever you are. We're taping Sunday night after the Texans hung on to beat the Bears 19-13. It's Andrew Fillipponi, joined once again by one of the great NFL corners of all time, Patrick Peterson, as we go through everything that happened here in week 2. And we always start with the Sunday night game. And man, I wouldn't call it a snooze fest, Pat, but again, another game with not a lot of points, which as a defensive player on some level, that's got to make you happy. Let's get into the reason why Caleb Williams, for a second straight game, does not have a big game, and the Bears do not score many points. He was sacked 7 times, Pat. He was hit a ton in this game. They did have a chance to win it at the end, but they couldn't seal the deal. He got picked off twice. And they flashed a stat during the game that said DeMeco Ryans, the Texans head coach, blitzed more in this game than any game ever with him calling plays. This is the highest blitz rate we've seen. He sent the kitchen sink and then some at Caleb Williams, and it worked. So I'm curious from your perspective as an expert here, what do you make of it? Like, do you put that on Caleb for not being able to make plays against the blitz, Pat, or should the Bears have made a coaching adjustment in this game to make life easier on their rookie quarterback?
Well, it can go both ways, but I'm going to give you my personal experience by being a defensive back and going up against rookie quarterbacks. You always want to make it as tough as possible for them in that ball game. And what's going to make it tough for them by making the pocket muddy as possible. And Coach Ryan did not shy away from sending pressure every chance that he got, because it seemed like every time Caleb Williams dropped back, he was getting hit right in the mouth. So from my experience, I was not surprised seeing how much the Houston Texans were able to pressure Caleb Williams here today. But overall, like you said, it wasn't necessarily a snooze fest. I thought it was a great competitive game from both defenses. I just think, the defenses are catching up now. We know that, this league is an offensive league. Everybody want to see a ton of points, but I believe that a lot of the defensive coordinators have been doing a lot of deep dive studying on some of the plays that's hurting them, understanding the situations that you are in and understanding what you need to get out of that situation. So like in the red zone, you don't see as much cover zeros pressures anymore. You see guys playing more coverage, preventing touchdowns versus field goals. Like this week, you've seen a lot of red zone trips, but not a lot of red zone conversion into touchdowns. So that just goes to show that the defensive coordinators have been doing a really, really good job over this offseason on trying to get a hold of these offenses going into this 2024 season.
Pat, that being said, how would you assess the way Williams played in this game? Because that's probably going to be more than anything else what people try to analyze and break down. He's 1-1. He threw 2 interceptions, still not a lot of yards. We're seeing him try to make those plays once, and the pocket broke down a ton. He did not have a run game. I mean, the Bears did not put their quarterback in a position where things were made easy for him in this game. So it was an uphill battle. But I have to ask, because we were somewhat skeptical before the game, now having watched him play an entire game, what your reaction is to him.
I just feel like the Bears have to do a better job of putting him in position of being into being successful. I feel like they have to do, as for themselves, do a great job of self-scouting, really asking Caleb what he is really comfortable with. Because if you guys are doing things that he's not comfortable with, there's no chance that you're going to be successful. So I think that's a starting block on getting some dialogue from him. Like, what are you comfortable with? What do you like to do? What do you see yourself being successful in this offense? What type of plays do you like? So I think that's going to be a start for them, because like right now, it just looked like a deer in the headlights. There's a couple of times out there where The ball was not placed in the right position when the receivers was down the field. A couple guys where he wanted to throw a short 5-yard out. The receiver wasn't there. He did this in the middle of the play. I thought that was a little awkward. So it just looked like he's not grasping, the speed of the game and the offensive scheme thus far.
They've got a good team. I mean, their defense held Houston to 19 points. So it's not like he's on a team that's projected to win 3 or 4 games. There's potential there. And that's why I think he's on an accelerated growth rate here. He's got to be good because the expectations are not for this to be a rebuilding year. And
I
Chicago,
will say,
Pat.
If he continued to play like this, it might be a 3-4 win season, though. But they do have a really, really good team. I think he has to understand how to play within himself and really understand that you don't have to make those hero plays all the time. We know that you have the ability to do that, but I would like to see him just slowly continue to learn his way. I would like to see the offensive coordinators give him a little bit more easier reads, some high-low concepts, motion receivers a little bit, help him identify what defense that he's about to face. I just see a lot of stagnant no movement on the offensive side of the ball from the Bears. And I believe if you're able to give him the answer to the test before the play actually starts by motioning guys, getting coverage identification, I think that'll also help him free him up a little bit more in the passing game as well.
Well, the Texans forced the turnovers. They only got 1 field goal out of those 2 interceptions by Williams and had a fumble by Akers late where they should have gone in and scored. So they played offensively far from a perfect game. But they win their 2-0, and now they got a matchup with another 2-0 team next week. All right, Pat, so let's get to the rest of the games. And you touched on it with your first answer. Defense seems to be ahead of offense right now. One place where that is not true offensively is New Orleans. They've scored 91 points in their first 2 games. That is the 4th most in NFL history. This is deja vu for Dallas. They were awful in their playoff game against Green Bay at home. And the same thing happened today against the Saints. They gave up 35 points in the first half. That had never happened in Cowboys history. I mean, just wild offensive production from New Orleans and defensive ineptitude from Dallas. So this is a game that we like to play here. In your opinion, was today's game more about what the Saints did right or what the Cowboys did wrong?
I think it was more about what the Saints did right, because if you think about it, going back into the season, there was a lot of questions about Dennis Allen, the head coach, if he was the right coach for this job. Derek Carr, is he going to be the starter? Is Clint Kubiak going to be able to get this offense in the right direction? Those guys have answered all of those questions thus far throughout the 2 weeks of the season. As you noted, 91 points throughout the first 2 games of the season. And then you got to go back to, like I said, Dennis Allen. We had a lot of questions about him as well. And we all know that he's a defensive-minded head coach. And right now his defense is humming. They're playing with their hair on fire right now with 4 interceptions, creating a bunch of pressure on the quarterback, getting some sacks in there as well. So I would have to say with the way the New Orleans Saints played, I would have to go with the New Orleans Saints with everything that they did right here Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys.
I want to agree with you because I think that Kubiak is so far been a huge upgrade at offensive coordinator. We obviously know his background. He spent a year in San Francisco. His dad, he's got great NFL bloodlines. And I think what he's done with Derek Carr, I see a more aggressive Derek Carr, Pat. He's pushing the ball downfield more than he did in his first year there, which was a colossal disappointment. Kamara looks almost like a Christian McCaffrey to me with the way they're using him. He had 4 touchdowns today. So it was a throwback game for him. And their defense, guys like Davis, Jordan, Honey Badger. I mean, they've got guys that have been around forever that are making plays. And the corner didn't even play today. What's his name? Their number 1 corner. Yes, Lattimore, thank you, was out. And Kool-Aid McKinstry stepped up and played well.
Played a big game.
Yes, he did. But
he played a huge game.
It's just when you go home after that horrible playoff loss last year, and you've won 16 straight regular season games, and the whole season with the Cowboys is getting to that next level, NFC Championship, competing for a Super Bowl. Man, you can't lay a friggin' egg like this, because all it does is invite questions and criticisms and concerns about your ability to handle big moments and in big games. And they didn't again. And, it amps the pressure on Mike Zimmer. Mike Zimmer's replacing Dan Quinn, who was one of the best defensive play callers in the entire league. They got punked today. They got embarrassed. And that's
first play.
Yeah, and that's bad for any NFL team. It's made even worse when you're the Cowboys and there's a bullseye on your back at all times. So I always wonder with them, because of the amount of scrutiny, are they built to handle it? How do they deal with the fact that everyone gets up for them, that they're such a polarizing team? And I don't know if they passed the test in Cleveland as much as the Browns failed it. And today at home, they're playing a team that's better than everybody thought, but it was just a putrid performance, and one that harkens back to what they did last year. All right, next up, Bengals and Chiefs. This game was a classic. When these two teams play, Pat, they're always close games. Yeah. But here's my issue with this game today. Jamar Chase lost his mind and got called for a personal foul because he's going after the officials. He gets grabbed by McDuffie. There's no call. Burrow has to calm him down. Taylor. McPherson goes out and kicks a field goal. It ends that drive. Maybe they score a touchdown. Who knows if that gets called? Okay, so it doesn't. But then Kansas City gets the pass interference call that sets up their game-winning field goal. And as a fan and not a player like you, my issue in these situations is always when I feel like one team gets a call and the other team doesn't, and the officiating is not consistent. If you're going to call it one way, call it both, or don't call it either way. And that's what ticked me off about this game. And I just feel like, anecdotally, the Chiefs always get these breaks, man. They got it in the Super Bowl 2 years ago with the defensive holding when they called it against Juju and they kicked the field goal. And they got, I think, a break that helped them win the game today. So, am I wrong for saying that this game basically came down to a decision by the officials? Because that's how it felt like to me watching it.
Nah, I think you're wrong. I don't think this game came down to the officials. Yeah, it seems like the Kansas City Chiefs always find a way to get a break. But no, that was the right call on both of those plays. Jamar Chase, he was frustrated about the tackle, which I thought was a clean tackle. It wasn't a what they call it now, a hip drop tackle.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be in a face mask or a horse collar or whatever you wanted to call it. But that goes back to what we talked about last week. I guarantee you, if Jamar Chase was signed by now, that situation wouldn't have happened by him going ballistic or on the ref, by him thinking that he got hip drop tackled or horse collar or whatever the case may be.
Because he's thinking if he gets injured and I'm out for a while, I'm going to cost myself money instead of the contract being done, is what you're saying.
Exactly. But and then in the pass interference, that was the right call. The safety got there just a tad bit too early, a rookie mistake, and it cost them. It wasn't those plays right there should not have been put in the referee's hands. If that makes sense. The Jamar Chase play shouldn't have been put in the ref hands, and the pass interference shouldn't have been put in the ref hands. I understand that it always seemed like the Chiefs get calls their way, but those were the right calls.
All right, so you're saying today I'm wrong, but generally speaking, do you think that Kansas City gets the 50-50 calls for the most part? Am I wrong about that too?
Yeah, no, I don't think you're wrong about generally getting, calls, like favorable calls. I won't say like refs are going out and saying, oh, we're going to, give the Kansas City Chiefs this call. If it's tight, if they, they get favorable calls. If that's the proper answer to say. I won't say that refs are going out there,
No, but it's like LeBron or Michael Jordan driving to the basket. If there's contact, they're going to give those guys the benefit
exactly.
of the doubt.
So that's what I mean by the favorable call. They're the two-time champs. looking for a three-peat, so they, some calls going to go their way. But those calls today, those were fair calls. It wasn't.
It's annoying because I don't think they've played really a good game yet. I mean, Mahomes only threw for 150 yards and 2 interceptions, and they're 2-0. And their defense, again, finds ways. They pick up that Burrow fumble, and they score. And honestly, their defense, I think, won them a Super Bowl last year. And I think it's got them 2-0 right now, Pat. And everybody doesn't gloss over it all the way, but it just gets second fiddle to Mahomes and Kelsey and everything else because of what those guys have been in their careers.
I agree with you 100%. Even going back, like you said, that the Kansas City Chiefs defense won them the Super Bowl last year. It goes all the way back to the second half of the football season of last year, of holding their opponents to 16 and a half points, going on that playoff run and winning the Super Bowl. So the defense has been playing lights out for over 8 months now, leading back into the second half of last year's season. So Coach Steve got those guys. I mean, he's always going to have some type of exotic blitz. He's always going to find a way to take away your best threat and force you to beat you with their left hand. And that's what they do consistently week in and week out. And that's how they're able to win ball games on a consistent basis.
Bengals are 0-2. The last 5 years, their week 1 and week 2 records combined 1-9. They are so bad to start seasons, and they didn't get any help from the schedule makers having to go to Arrowhead in week 2, but 0-2 is 0-2, and they're back in that hole again this year. All right, 2 games that were good games that I think have similar themes here and storylines, Pat. Bucks, Lions, 49ers, Vikings. Tampa goes to Detroit and wins, and they hold Detroit under 20. Minnesota hosts San Francisco. They hold the Niners under 20 points. So the 2 favorites to win the NFC Championship in last year's title game both lost today. Both offenses were held in check. Which offensive performance would you be more concerned by? Detroit against Tampa at home, or what San Francisco couldn't do in Minnesota today?
That's a great question because both of those guys went up against some really, really stout defenses. Tampa Bay is a top 10 defense under Todd Bowles. And San Francisco, no matter who their defensive coordinator is, they always seem to be a top unit across the board. But I'm gonna go with the Detroit Lions, and here's why. Detroit Lions have, they was one of the hottest offenses in the league last year, and up until this point, the first 2 weeks of the season, it seemed like the offense is kind of stuttering right now. They have moments, but they have not been as consistent of moving the ball up and down the field as they was able to do last year. So my concerns are with the Detroit Lions right now, just with their lack of ability to move the ball consistently as they were able to do last year. But hopefully, Coach Campbell will get those guys in the right direction here, moving in the right direction here pretty soon, because I feel this is a very, very competitive division that they're in the NFC North, with Minnesota being 2-0, Green Bay finding a way to win today, and obviously Chicago is a young, greedy football team as well. So they're going to have to get their act together here pretty soon if they want to be where they were last year in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, Detroit's the right answer. The 49ers did this last year, too. They went on a Monday night to Minnesota and lost to the Vikings and Kirk Cousins. They did not have McCaffrey today. I mean, that part is scary. When is that guy going to come back? And I know that Mason had 100 yards, but the dual threat ability of McCaffrey, him catching the ball out of the backfield. Ayuk, too, you can tell that missing all that time, he is not right yet. He only had 4 catches. So once I think he gets more acclimated, having missed training camp in the preseason, I think that he'll figure it out. And, Trent Williams too. I mean, there's just a lot of players for San Francisco that did not do any of the football training stuff that I think eventually will get back to what they are known for, which is being, elite players. Detroit's whole game plan today, I just don't understand it, Pat. I mean, we saw them last Sunday night. They didn't run the ball well in the first half, and then instead of doing it better in the second half, they just said, we're not going to run it. And they only went back to the run in overtime, and that's why they beat the Rams with Montgomery. Today, Goff threw it 55 times.
I know.
You've got the best offensive line in football. You're not getting blown out. What are you doing having them drop back 55 times? By the way, Goff was not great. He threw 2 more interceptions. His whole MO is he's a dome quarterback and not a bad weather quarterback. I think he struggled to start the year. 2 interceptions. St. Brown had a monster game, but Laporta only had 2 catches. I'm flummoxed by I'm flummoxed why they went away from the run. And it's not like Tampa Bay had their big run stuffers. Vita Vea didn't play in the game. Kalijah Kancey didn't play in the game. Winfield didn't play in the game. Like, right. I don't get that part. And Johnson almost got NFL head coaching looks, Pat, but that to me has got to change for them moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Those 2 games are down. Let's get to the Seahawks and Patriots. New England, this game went to overtime. New England's been very plucky here. They've shown moxie and balls in these first 2 games. They could have easily won today if not for a Seattle blocked field goal that kept the lead at 3. Seattle came down, tied it, and then won the game in overtime. Pat, how is it possible that the Patriots actually look better without the greatest coach of all time in Bill Belichick through 2 games?
Because they have a Bill Belichick disciple and Coach Mayo. You know, Coach Mayo not only coached under Bill Belichick for, I believe, 3 seasons, he also played under Bill Belichick and played on some Super Bowl teams. You know, so he had the opportunity to get both worlds as a player and as a coach, as far as how to prepare a team, what are the principles on how to orchestrate victory. Meaning having quality quarterback play, not turning the ball over, time of possession, having awesome special team play, which New England always have, minus that block field goal today, and just play stout defense. You know, that's the recipe for winning, and that's the Patriots way. And he learned from one, if not the best head coach to ever do it. You know, so you know, he's been around, and been around and played a lot of great football, and now he's just displaying, you know, everything that he was able to learn as a player and as a coach under Coach Bill Belichick.
But it does feel to me like there's a new energy there. Like things got a little stale under Belichick, and they seem like they're revitalized under Mayo, Pat.
Yeah. Sometimes you need a new face. Sometimes you need a new face, new voice, to kind of change things around, new vision. You know, sometimes that the old school way is not the best way sometimes, you know, because nowadays the NFL team average roster is 24 years old. You know, Coach Bill is 80 something, if I'm not mistaken. You know, so I don't know if there was a related,
that's what I was going to say. The relatability of him being a former player too, and a good one.
Mm-hmm. Being able to relate to the guys may have been a little stale, but now having a guy who's not only been in the locker room as a player, speaking of Coach Mayo as a head coach, now that you have a guy that's not only been in the line of fire as the guys are, his players are, he's been on the other side as well. So he wants the best for you, and he understands how to get the best out of you. You know, so the guys, you can just tell the guys love playing for him, and those guys go out there with a attitude and an objective on their mind that they're going to win the football game.
Probably say the same thing about Seattle. They're 2-0 without Pete Carroll, who's a borderline Hall of Fame coach, and Geno Smith had another big game today, threw for over 300 yards in Seattle's win. All right, we're doing every game, every team here on First and Pod. Andrew Fillipponi with Patrick Peterson. Jets and Titans. Aaron Rodgers did make some Aaron Rodgers-esque throws. He had one to Garrett Wilson. But I think the bigger story in this game is actually the other team's quarterback. Will Levis threw one of the worst interceptions in one of the worst moments last week against Chicago. And if not for that boneheaded play, Tennessee would have won that game. Then today, they were driving, and he threw a ball backwards to a running back. It got picked up by a Jet, so they didn't score on that possession. And then the new coach there, Brian Callahan, came off the sideline and basically cussed out Levis and said, "What the F are you doing?" There was another horrible turnover in the game. They should probably be 2-0, Patrick, because their defense did play another solid game today. I'm bringing all this up because I don't see Levis as a long-term NFL starting quarterback. This new coach has no loyalty to him because he comes from Cincinnati. And they do have Mason Rudolph as the backup there. You were with Mason in Pittsburgh last year. He came off the bench and went 3-0 to get you guys to the playoffs. I think he's going to be their quarterback by the end of the month with the way Levis is playing. He's not a first-round pick. I don't see them being committed to him. You got to win games, and I think they've got a better option on their bench. Am I crazy here?
No, you're not crazy at all. And not only that, you have to win games. You have to take care of the football. And the turnovers that Will Levis have been causing for the Tennessee Titans have been just mind-blowing, mind-boggling. Just turnovers that don't make any sense at all, especially the one today that he threw backwards. Yeah, I would have been much better if you just took the sack. So you can't continue to
put 3 points on the board there.
Right, exactly. You can't continue to put your team in a bad situation, because points are so precious. The football is so precious, first and foremost, because you always want to take care of that. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't see Will being a quarterback, past these next 3 games.
Do you think Rudolph can be a good NFL starting quarterback?
I think Mason can be a good NFL starting quarterback because he has the moxie, he has the arm strength, he has the confidence, and the thing I love about Mason the most is that he's going to stand in the pocket tall. He's going to stand tall in the pocket. The building could be falling down on Mason. He's still going to stand in the building and try to deliver the ball. And that's what you want in your quarterback, someone who's not going to be retrieving each and every time the kitchen gets hot. The kitchen gets hot. You want a guy that's going to stand tall in the pocket, deliver the ball where it's supposed to go, and move the chains. And that's what Mason is able to do on a consistent basis. At least what I was able to witness last year with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's just not fair to the rest of the team when a guy turns the ball over and their low football IQ plays. Mistakes are going to happen. Physical mistakes are going to happen. But when the mental mistakes happen repeatedly, I just don't think that's fair to the other 52 guys on the team who put in so much hard work and time to try to win games. So I don't see Levis lasting very much longer if this keeps up. Colts and Packers. Speaking of mistakes, Anthony Richardson, 3 interceptions today. And I got to give my guy Matt LaFleur credit. I thought he was going to come up with something to protect Willis. I didn't think it would be just run the ball 50 times. It worked, to his credit. Josh Jacobs had a monster game. But really, though, if you're Anthony Richardson, you've got to beat Malik Willis. At the very least, you've got to be the better quarterback in the game against Malik Willis. And it just begs the question about what Richardson's NFL future is, Pat, because you see breathtaking plays, you see highlight reel plays, you see plays that go viral on social media that show his arm strength and his athleticism. But I'm not convinced right now that you can win long-term with him. He's young, he's green, but he's learning on the job, and that's a tough thing to do in the NFL right now. So where are you on Richardson as an NFL quarterback?
Oh, man, his future, I won't necessarily say it's over because like he has a lot of potential. The thing I don't necessarily say I don't like about him. The thing I feel like he needs to work on is his accuracy. I feel like he really struggles with accuracy, throwing the ball down in intermediate routes, meaning those passes 10 to 15 yards and beyond. He has a
Do you see
really
quarterbacks that get better at that?
say it again.
Do you see quarterbacks that get better at the
Oh yeah,
accuracy thing? Yeah.
oh yeah. It's an art. It's time. It's time that you have to put in to get better at that for sure. But he has a huge arm. Ain't no doubt about that.
Yep.
But he don't know where the ball is going when he throws it. It's almost like a long drive hitter in golf. He can hit the ball 400 yards, but you get him on a golf course, he can't chip, he can't putt, he can't hit a 150-yard shot because his accuracy is off. And that's kind of how Anthony Richardson is right now. He's super athletic, have a really, really big arm, but he really struggles with his accuracy right now. And I believe that's something that's going to help him eventually become a better NFL quarterback and a better passing NFL quarterback.
What I don't get is if I were a Colts fan, if I was on in Indianapolis, the thing I would say out of this game is, why don't we do what Green Bay did in this game? They have an athletic quarterback. They have running backs. They used that to their advantage, and they just ran the ball. We should be using Anthony Richardson as a runner more than a passer right now because that part of his game is not refined. Their offensive line is good. Jonathan Taylor is an upper echelon running back. Like, okay, the passing thing is going to come along. It's not he's not a finished product right now. In the meantime, make the offense about his running ability, like the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson early in his career. I don't. Steichen's a bright guy. I'm a little bit confused that they haven't done that more in these first two games, but he is coming back from an injury, and maybe that's what they're ultimately worried about.
Yeah.
Pat, speaking of Lamar Jackson, Baltimore blew another 10-point fourth quarter lead. It's happened 4 times since 2019. It's the second year in a row the Ravens have lost a home game to Gardner Minshew. They were an 8.5-point favorite today. Why are they now losing a game like this every year where they're the much better team, they're at home, they have a big lead, and they fritter it away late in the game? What is it about the Ravens where this has now become part of their team DNA?
I can't go back, past this year, because obviously I was still in between the lines, but going to these last 2 weeks on why I feel like the Ravens have been blowing these leads in the fourth quarter is on the defensive side. Those key departures that end up going into new places from the defensive side, and the defensive coordinator, Stone in the safety, Queen in the linebacker, and just their defense is just, to me, just making a bunch of uncharacteristic mistakes, like blown coverages in week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs. This week, not really necessarily blown coverages, but leaving guys wide open, not really in tune with, whatever the assignment may cause, whatever assignment that they may have to be in for that play. So a bunch of uncharacteristic mistakes on the defensive side of the ball. And on the offensive side of the ball, I just think they're getting away from the running game when they do have those leads. I think they're doing a little bit too much in the passing game, getting a little bit too cute, as Coach Bruce Arians used to say. This is why you brought, Derrick Henry in the game for that grind time. When you have these 4-quarter wins, now you want to be able to, because you already have an offensive lineman problem, shuffles. Now this is the time that you kind of get a feel of the runs that you like, the runs that you want to run in the near future to kind of help put your team in a better position moving forward.
Derrick Henry is going to join you in Canton one day, and he is an all-time kind of built-in-a-lab player. There are just very few men of his size that move like him that have played that position. And I still think that he's got something to give. I'm not saying he's shot or cooked by any means.
No.
I just feel like with him there, it's an adjustment for them.
Yes.
Like, and my thing about the Ravens was, I feel like with Lamar, The offensive line, it's struggling right now. We get that. But Lamar is creates such a fear in opposing defenses from a running standpoint. I almost feel like regardless of who's his running back is, they're going to be able to run the ball decently. 2 straight games, they go over 150 yards rushing, and they lose. I think they needed guys that helped keep safeties back and challenge teams downfield in the offseason, and they didn't do that. They brought Bateman back. They have Aguilar there. Flowers is in his second year. I felt, Pat, like they were going to be a successful running team with or without Derrick Henry. And so that's their big addition, but I don't think that made them substantially better because they were already a top 5 running team.
Right. And not only that, Derrick Henry don't fit their running style anyway. Derrick Henry is a more I formation running back. Lamar
he
likes
wants the quarterback under center, and Lamar doesn't want to be under center.
Exactly. So that makes it hard for him to get going because now the vision is different for Derrick. Now you're waiting for guys. Now you're waiting for left and right guards to pull from the opposite side to get to the right side, to the left side. I'm sorry. And as you saw in the first game, it just looked like the timing is not there. So he's just got to get. That's another coach. Coach Mumpkin is going to have to do is get those guys, find out what runs that really works for them as well to get Derrick Henry going, because there's no way that Lamar and Derrick Henry in the same backfield should not be more explosive than what they are right now.
I agree with you too on the Queen and Stone departures. I mean, Bowers came in, and we know how good he is from Georgia, but he ate them alive today, and he would not have done that to last year's defense the way that he did. I think he had almost 100 yards in this game, and Adams went over 100 yards as well. And Vegas's very surprising comeback today. This is now for Baltimore the 5th time they've ever been 0-2. Every time they've started 0-2, they've missed the playoffs. Rams and Cardinals. So Kyler, he said last week, it's not my job to get the ball to Marvin Harrison. He got him the ball in this game. He had 2 touchdown passes to Harrison before the first quarter was over. It just looked like and I don't mean to say this as a joke because I know he's into video games, but it looked like he was playing a video game today. It seemed like it was so easy. The Rams have had his number since he came into the league. McVay had only lost to Arizona once. He was, I think, 13-1 against the Cardinals. Yeah. And this was a blowout. Now, we know that Murray threw himself a little party when Aaron Donald retired because Aaron Donald did to Kyler Murray what he did to every player, which is just wreak havoc. But you were in Arizona, Pat. Mm-hmm. It's just like it's in there with him. Can he do it more often? He's now got, I think Harrison is an elite receiver.
Yeah.
How do we get repeat performances like this? Because that Kyler Murray, that's why he was the number 1 pick. And I think now they have enough weapons around him, and the coach is a very good defensive coach. They can win a lot of games.
Yeah.
If he's not going to play like that every week, but if he plays close to that, Pat, they're going to be a problem for teams this year.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that Kyler Murray can do that on a consistent basis. I was his teammate for 3 years, and I had actually 2 years, and I had an opportunity to watch it up close in person. He's super athletic. Has tons of gifts. It's just his arm. Now his accuracy, as little as he is, his accuracy is unbelievable. Not even able to be able to see over the offensive line half of the time. He's able to drop some dimes in there on a consistent basis. It's just going to come down to him just holding himself accountable week in and week out, man, because he have everything that he needs to win right now. Now it's just going to come down to him being accountable, holding everybody else in the locker room accountable, and leading by an example. And that's, in my honest opinion, that's what it's going to come down with Kyler Murray, and also staying healthy, because there's nothing that he can't do on the football field. It's just the other little things that he needs to clean up that's going to help him continue to be the player that he desire to be.
How much do you think coaches and other veteran players have to take not accountability, but how much of it is on them to try to coax that out of Kyler? Like, is it only like Kyler, or is it like if you're a coach, can you motivate the guy in a certain way or communicate with him in a way to try to get this version of him more often?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a way that you can communicate with the player, but it's on the player to take the information or take whatever that person or that coach is trying to get across to him. So it's on the player as well. I'm sure, coaches have put, their input in or, giving them advice or whatnot, or whatever the
Yep.
case may be. It's on the player to be able to receive and take that advice and apply it.
Steelers and Broncos. Justin Fields made some electric plays in the first half. And then the second half, you might as well bury 100 feet underground and never ask people to go watch that part of the game again. It was just that horrendous. It was so bad. 13-6 was the final score. It was another one of these Mike Tomlin rock fights that he loves. So the Steelers are 2-0 for the 7th time under Tomlin. Here's what I want to know, Pat, and you know this team even better than I do because you played on it last year. Are they a good team? Because I asked people this question after the game, and most fans are split on it. Their record says they're good, but they've only scored 1 touchdown in 2 games. Do they look like a good team to you right now?
They look like an average team right now. And that's to say, just because what the offense is doing, you have to be able to give me more. And I know that they're scoring more than the opposing team. That's all fine and dandy. But at the same time, you don't want your defense on the field as much as the defense has been on the field. We know the defense is the cornerstone of the organization. But at the same time, you guys are preparing just as hard as we're preparing as well. So we would like to see a little bit more, from the offensive side of the ball to help us be able to take a break a little bit, to be able to, catch our win when we come over to the sideline. So I believe right now they are average team, but they have the potential to be a really, really good team if they're able to get a little bit more out of the offense, because some of the flashes that we saw today out of George, Darrell Washington getting the back shoulder fade touchdown today, Najee running the ball downhill as aggressive as he has been, Pat continuing to be successful a third down killer consistently over the first 2 weeks of the season. So they have the potential to be a really good team, but as of right now, on how the offense is performing, I would have to give them an average grade right now.
Yeah, it's harder for me because I thought they played better offensively than the 18 points suggested. Today, I honestly think they realized we could play for, instead of a 60-minute game, we could play a 10-hour game. And
Right.
Denver was not going to give up a touchdown unless they turned the ball over or there was a special teams play. And I think Mike realized that, and they played not to lose in the second half. They had 1 offensive first down in 30 minutes. And I just think that was the game almost dictated that, or they could get away with that. So, yeah, I would say, well, here's why it's so hard for me to say that they're not good. Their defense is probably the best in football.
That's what I'm saying.
So I think the defense is going to be great unless there's major injuries. And I think the offense is going to get better. So I do think they're a good team. We'll find out. We'll have more answers next week because the Chargers come to town. That'll be a fun game.
That will be a fun game. I have a question for you, because since I'm not in the locker room anymore or in these team meetings, what are the new onside rules? Because I was curious on why Denver did not kick the onside kick.
I think, you want my honest answer? I think Sean Payton forgot that you could still onside kick. Because it made zero sense
I was a little
kick the ball off there. For people that didn't see it, there was less than 2 minutes left. Denver did not have, I think they had one timeout left, and they kicked deep instead of trying to recover an onside kick down 6 points or down 7 points. It made no sense.
Yeah, I was curious, but the announcer did say that you have to declare that you're going to kick an onside kick. But I think they changed the setup on the onside kick as well, because he was saying now with the new onside kick, I guess, setup or whatever, it reduces the chance of you getting the onside even lower from the original way from setting up for the onside kick.
The whole kickoff thing is just absolutely
it's man. Weird. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on with
that. Jaguars and Browns. Trevor Lawrence after the game said, "We suck right now." My personal opinion, I think he should have changed "we" to "I."
Yeah.
And I get it. The team, it's a team game, but you just got one of the biggest contracts in football. We don't expect the same from Trevor Lawrence as we do Christian Kirk or Travis Etienne or one of their linebackers. We just don't. Like, he was a number 1 overall pick. He came into the league with Andrew Luck-sized expectations. And he hasn't really, other than that playoff comeback win against the Chargers, he hasn't come close to delivering on those. So at some point, I think he's got to be more outspoken about his own shortcomings. Pat, what do you think?
I agree. And media 101, and Bruce Arians was always great at this. Whenever you're talking in the media, you talk about I. You don't talk about nobody else. You talk about I. And like you said, Pony, I would have liked to hear him say, "I sucked as well," versus him saying "we," because as a team, they played solid. It wasn't like they played like sloppy football. I mean, obviously they have to learn how to finish a little bit better and executing the plays down the stretch, but they didn't play like an awful game. They dug themselves in the deep hole early, but they found a way to try to fight themselves out of that hole. But I would have loved to hear him say "I" versus "we," because the team overall, I felt, did not play an overall bad game. It's just some execution and finishing things that needs to be cleaned up to help them start winning these games in the fourth quarter.
Watson actually had a couple of moments where he looked like the Houston Deshaun Watson, but he did, on a third down near the end of the game, throw the ball away. It almost got intercepted, and the incomplete pass stopped the clock. If he takes a sack there, with Jacksonville having no timeouts, they would have probably never even gotten the ball back. So I don't know why he's throwing in that situation, and that's a bad play call, but then you got to execute it better and know that if the clock stops, it's an even worse play. Giants, Commanders, Chargers, Panthers. Any thoughts on these two terrible games? I have a quick one on the Giants, Commanders. The kicker that Washington signed kicked 7 field goals to win that game. They scored 21. It wasn't 3 touchdowns. It was 7 kicks. And it was made even worse because the Giants kicker got injured on the very first play of the game. They did not have a kicker. The punter missed an extra point. Then they went for it on 2 touchdowns for 2, missed both, Pat. And then tied at 18 late in the game. They were driving. They were inside the 25. Instead of kicking, you can't because they don't trust their punter, evidently, to make a kick or anybody else on the roster. They go for it, and Malik Neighbors dropped the first down. I mean, if they have a kicker, the Giants win this game today.
Yep.
And so they deserve their first loss to Minnesota. They got bludgeoned. Today, stroke of awful, awful luck where your kicker goes down on the very first play of the game. And that's the biggest reason why they're 0-2 right now.
Yeah, that sucks for the Giants. But I'm gonna go over to the Panthers in the Chargers game. Man, the Carolina Panthers look like my high school football team right now. I feel bad for Bryce Young right now. The offensive line can't block a soul. I mean, he have no time to make to set up in the pocket to deliver the ball to anyone. So it's just it's a bad outing and a bad
So wait,
watch.
you think if Young were on a different team in a different situation, he'd be a completely different quarterback?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he'll be great in like a Rams, Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell type system. Because that's
Well,
kind of the things that he ran when he was at Alabama.
yeah.
That pistol offense, play action, deep overs, deep shots down the field, play action boots. So I think that type of play, offensive play call fits his athletic ability.
I'm worried that he's traumatized by the number of hits he took last year.
Yes. And that's why I think in that type of offense, he won't be getting hit as much. He'll be on the move, so he'll be able to dictate, the hits that he's taking now. Like look at Matthew Stafford. Look at Kirk Cousins before the Achilles injuries. Those guys they wasn't getting beat up in the pocket. They found ways to move the pocket, found ways to get the ball out of his hands quicker versus having these long developing plays down the field. And if it was off of some type of action to get the defense going one way and have him going another way. So there's a bunch of things I feel like in that offensive scheme would really help Bryce Young be a better quarterback, because whatever the Carolina Panthers are running right now is not it.
All right, that does it for week 2. I'm predicting the Falcons are going to upset the Eagles on Monday night. We'll come back on Thursday. We'll break down the Patriots and Jets, Aaron Rodgers in prime time. We'll go through all the week 3 matchups. Listen and subscribe to First and Pod. It's on the Odyssey app, Apple Music, you name it. It's everywhere. Just search 1ST and Pod, and you'll find us. For Patrick Peterson, I'm Andrew Fillipponi. Thanks for listening.